This is the most powerful attack we've ever seen from a single captain. It's just a shame that it also might be the last time we'll ever see said captain alive. Jack may have departed this world, but he left us in the most spectacular way possible. A way that only someone like him could pull off, choosing instead of having a sappy farewell with his close friends and allies, to spend his final moments cutting down some of the most powerful enemies the Clover Kingdom has ever faced. He may not have been my favorite captain, but in his final moments, Jack chose to go out showing his greatest rival the full extent of his power, and for that, he will forever have my respect. So, with teary eyes, let's say our final goodbyes to Jack the Ripper, the captain of the Green Mantis. Long may he slash. That is until he eventually comes back in a few chapters. Because, let's be honest, one of the hardest things that Tabata has trouble with in his writing is killing off characters. And this isn't something exclusive to Tabata. Many current and former mangaka in Shonen Jump have the exact same problem. For example, Oda, the creator of One Piece, is notorious for not killing off his characters, with the only characters that usually end up dying being characters in flashbacks, and of course the baddest of bad guys. Killing off the unsympathetic villains, that's easy enough, but killing the good guys, the ones we're supposed to root for, that is incredibly hard for all writers. I mean, I can imagine that even though most were just faces without names, killing off half the Golden Dawn in the last saga must have really hit Tabata hard, and obviously the same can be said for Jack. But luckily enough, there's a strong possibility that Jack and any other character that might end up dying during Judgment Day will eventually end up coming back. For one, there's my theory that all of this is just Lucius using its future sight. Check out my prediction video for chapter 357 onward if you want to know more about that. But there's also the fact that reviving everyone at the end of this was always Lucius's plan, to bring them back with undying bodies and completely under his control. So yeah, I'd say that there is a strong possibility that in part 2 of the saga, we could see Jack come back as a paladin, letting him finally have the death match against Yami that he's always wanted. Although, if I'm being completely honest, I kinda don't want that. I feel like having him come back as an opponent for Yami will diminish how perfect their final moment in this chapter was, even more so than if he just came back as is. Which, by the way, is also a very strong possibility, because let's not forget that the greatest healer of all time is a major character in this manga. And while she's currently MIA, once she shows up, she'll showcase a more powerful healing spell than we've ever seen before. She might even be able to heal William's arm, as we see in this chapter is still decaying, but hey, at least he didn't end up losing it. Which is more than we can say about mereoleona, who at the end of this chapter ends up losing her left arm to one of Morris's tentacles. Not usually the problem girls in manga have with tentacles, but hey, I'm here for it. Now, based on the editor's note at the very end of the chapter, it seems like the next one is going to be focused mostly on mereoleona, and this is to scare us into thinking that just like Jack, we might be losing the Crimson Lion's co-captain. But if I'm being honest, until we see her cold, dead body, there's almost nothing Tabata could do that would actually make me fear for this character, for the simple fact that Mary Oleona is just built different. Although, maybe her death might be what finally pushes Fugoyan to unlock his spirit dive. That transformation alone might make up for losing one of my top 3 characters, the other two being Asta and Yami. Which, speaking of Yami, he is going to be in for the fight of his life in the upcoming chapters, as we see Morgan's light magic is currently on a completely different level than anything we've ever seen before. And while we saw that not every paladin was implanted with the powers of a high tier devil, I wouldn't be surprised if Morgan was, given that not only will he be fighting Yami, but eventually he'll face off against his brother Noct as well. And it makes all the sense in the world for Tabata to not only have Noct fight the source of his guilt, but also the devil that caused Morgan's death in the first place, Lucifugus. That's exactly the kind of twisted yet delicious irony that I would expect someone like Lucius to think of. And speaking of Lucius, despite losing a horn in the last chapter, he manages to catch Yuno's sword with just one hand. Although, if you look at that hand, it is very clearly shaking, showing that he is struggling to hold back Yuno's attack. And considering that this is Yuno's weakest spirit dive weapon, Lucius is going to have an uphill battle. But despite that, something tells me that this dastardly villain has much more up his sleeve than we could ever imagine.